She walked into the boutique wearing a hoodie and sneakers and walked out humiliated. But 1 hour later, the doors swung open again. This time, her billionaire husband stepped in, and what happened next? It wasn't revenge. It was a lesson, one the entire city would never forget. This is the story of a simple woman and the store that misjudged her. A powerful reminder that dignity can't be measured by appearance, and kindness doesn't need to be dressed in luxury. Let the story begin. The morning air in Manhattan was crisp, laced with the scent of roasted chestnuts from a street cart and the faint metallic buzz of taxi horns in the distance. Jenna Rivera pulled her hoodie tighter around her frame as she stood outside Levine & Company, one of the most exclusive boutiques on Madison Avenue. Her fingers twitched nervously inside her sweatshirt pocket. This wasn't her usual territory. She preferred cozy bookstores and dollar-slice pizza joints. But today was different. Today was Eli's birthday. Not that he cared about gifts. Eli Hart, her husband of 2 years, didn't even like being called a billionaire. He said it made him feel like a headline instead of a person. But Jenna had saved for this. Freelance commissions, late-night illustration gigs, and even a few pieces sold at a pop-up art market in Brooklyn. Every dollar set aside with purpose. Because he loved vintage things. Because he once spent 20 minutes admiring a rare fountain pen in an online auction. Because no one had ever really surprised him. Today, that was going to change. She took a deep breath and pushed open the boutique door. A soft chime rang above her head as she entered. Inside, Levine & Company felt more like an art gallery than a store. Polished marble floors stretched beneath her sneakers, and the subtle scent of oud perfume clung to the air. The display cases gleamed under delicate track lighting. A young man in a navy three-piece suit glanced up from behind a counter. His eyes flicked over her hoodie, her well-worn jeans, her canvas tote bag with a faded, "Save the Bees" patch. Then he looked away. Jenna stepped further inside, scanning the glass cases for the object she'd memorized from their online catalog. There it was toward the back. The 1938 Mont Blanc Meisterstück. Deep burgundy resin, gold trim, untouched nib. Price tag, $12,000. She approached the counter where the pen sat, heart thrumming like a jazz beat. A tall, platinum blonde woman appeared from the side. Her sleek bun looked like it had never known a bad hair day. She wore a black shift dress and impossibly glossy heels. Her name tag read, "Brooke. Can I help you?" Brooke asked. The words were polite, but the tone barely veiled the question behind them. "Why are you here?" Jenna smiled. "Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that vintage Mont Blanc. Please." Brooke blinked. "That one?" She pointed just to be sure. "Yes." Brooke's eyes lingered on Jenna's hoodie. "That's one of our most exclusive pieces. It's quite an investment." "I know. That's why I want to see it." For a second, Brooke didn't move. Then, with a theatrical sigh, she pulled a small key from her lanyard and unlocked the case. She lifted the pen as if handling a relic from a sacred temple and laid it on a black velvet tray. Jenna leaned in, examining it like a museum curator. Her fingers tingled. Eli would lose his mind. "I'll take it," she said softly, almost in disbelief that she could finally say those words. Brooke blinked again. "You'll take it?" "Yes, it's a gift." Brooke pursed her lips. "Would you like to discuss financing options?" Jenna looked up. "No thanks. I'm paying in full." Brooke's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned her head toward the register, whispering something Jenna couldn't hear. Moments later, another figure emerged. Slim, severe, and unmistakably in charge. A man in his 30s, wearing a charcoal gray suit and brown horn-rimmed glasses. His hair was slicked back with the kind of precision that screamed luxury. Trevor Lang, store manager. Jenna had seen his face on their website's About Us page. "Everything okay here?" Trevor asked smoothly, looking directly at Brooke but clearly referencing Jenna. "This guest is interested in the Mont Blanc," Brooke said with practiced neutrality. Trevor turned his gaze to Jenna, and in that moment she saw it, the assessment. The mental checklist of fabric labels, nail polish brands, watch styles. She didn't pass. We do require some form of verification for high-ticket items, Trevor said. For your protection, of course. I have a debit card, Jenna said. And ID. Trevor smiled, tight-lipped. We typically ask for platinum or black card verification for purchases over $10,000. Jenna stiffened. I wasn't aware shopping here required a dress code or a tax bracket. Brooke shifted uncomfortably. Trevor's smile didn't budge. It's standard procedure, ma'am. Ma'am. Jenna glanced at the pen again. I'd like to buy this today. For my husband. Of course, Trevor said, not moving. Is he joining you? He's meeting me nearby for lunch. She checked her phone. In about an hour. Trevor's smile widened just enough to reveal teeth. Perhaps he can complete the purchase when he arrives. Jenna felt the heat rising behind her ears. She'd walked in here with hope and intention. Now she felt like a fraud. No, thank you, she said, voice steady. I'll take my business elsewhere. She turned, leaving behind the velvet tray, the glass cases, and the smell of expensive perfume that now made her nauseous. Outside, the city was louder, brighter, like it was trying to distract her from the sting in her chest. She slipped her phone from her pocket and pulled up her texts. Jenna, hey babe, change of plans. Meet me a few blocks down at Bella's cafe? Don't ask why just yet. She pressed send, took a shaky breath, and started walking. The bell above Bella's cafe door jingled as Jenna stepped inside. It was the kind of place that smelled like fresh croissants and roasted beans, with crooked frames on the walls and soft jazz humming from ceiling speakers. She slid into a booth in the back, facing the window. Her reflection in the glass looked calm. Too calm, considering the inferno under her skin. She stared down at the cafe menu but didn't read a word. Her fingers tapped restlessly on the wood-grain tabletop, her thoughts looping around Trevor's smug expression, Brooke's condescension, and the absurdity of it all. Was it the hoodie? The sneakers? Was I too nice? Not loud enough? Jenna bit the inside of her cheek. She'd come so close to pulling off the perfect surprise for Eli. The door chimed again. She didn't look up until she heard the familiar shuffle of boots and the soft brush of a canvas jacket sliding into the seat across from her. Hey, said Eli. He looked like the opposite of every headline that had ever labeled him the Golden Prince of FinTech. Tousled dark curls under a gray beanie. Soft, tired eyes. A calmness in his voice that always reminded her of deep water. You okay? He asked, noticing the strain in her smile. Yeah, she said, then hesitated. Well, no, not really. Eli didn't press. He reached for her hand across the table and waited. Jenna took a breath. I went to Levine and Company. His brow lifted slightly. You hate that place. I was getting something for you. Something special. That pen you mentioned once, what was it, 2 years ago? I found one. Same year, same model. Eli leaned back, surprised. Seriously? She nodded, her eyes dropping to her lap. But I didn't get to buy it. What happened? Jenna recounted the story in clipped phrases. Brooke's look, Trevor's tone, the implication she didn't belong there, her quiet refusal to argue, walking out humiliated. Eli didn't say anything at first, but she saw the way his fingers curled into his palms, saw how the warmth in his eyes hardened. And you said nothing back to them? He asked. I didn't want to cause a scene, and I guess part of me didn't want to use your name like some kind of pass. His gaze softened again. You shouldn't have to, he said. No one should. Jenna shrugged. It was just a pen. No, Eli replied, voice calm but razor sharp. It wasn't just a pen. It was a moment, and they stole it from you. A silence fell between them, thick but comfortable. Outside the window, the city moved on. Taxis honked, shoes slapped pavement, and steam curled up from a manhole like something out of a movie. Then Eli pulled out his phone. Who are you texting? Jenna asked. My assistant. I'm canceling my 2 o'clock. She frowned. Why? He stood. Because there's something I need to do. Eli. But he was already tucking his phone into his pocket, his face composed, his voice gentle. Come with me. Jenna stood slowly. Where? He offered his hand. Back to the boutique. She stared at him, unsure. You don't have to. I know. Then why? Eli looked her square in the eyes. Because someone needs to remind them that dignity doesn't wear designer. Outside, Eli's driver, a broad-shouldered man named Mason, pulled up in a sleek black SUV. The vehicle's tinted windows glinted under the sun like a secret. As Jenna climbed in, she caught her reflection again, this time beside Eli's. She still wore the hoodie and sneakers, but something about her posture had changed. The SUV pulled up to the curb in front of Levine and Company like a whisper wrapped in armor. Polished black, silent engine, windows too dark to see through. It didn't roar, it arrived. A few pedestrians slowed down, curious, their eyes darting from the vehicle to the boutique's sparkling facade. Inside the car, Eli adjusted the sleeve of his jacket. It wasn't anything flashy, just clean, sharp, minimal. Like him. Jenna sat beside him, her hoodie still zipped, but her back straight now, eyes focused on the boutique's entrance like it was a mountain she was ready to climb. You sure about this? She asked quietly. Eli's hand found hers. Absolutely. The driver opened their doors in unison. As they stepped out, a gust of cool spring air brushed against their faces. Jenna tucked her hair behind her ears and caught a glimpse of their reflection in the glass doors of Levine and Company. A quiet couple, mismatched in appearance, but entirely in step. Inside the boutique, Brooke was chatting with a customer when the door chimed. She glanced up and froze. Trevor, across the room, turned at her sudden silence. His eyes narrowed when he saw Jenna re-enter. His lips parted to speak, but then he saw him. Eli Hart. Even those who didn't follow the business world might have recognized him from the occasional headline, youngest CEO to crack billion-dollar valuation, fintech wunderkind redefines global payments. But Trevor knew him for another reason entirely. 2 weeks ago, a memo had been circulated to upper-level staff at Levine and Company headquarters. A new private investment partner was entering the picture, a venture capital firm quietly acquiring a minority stake. The name on the memo, Hart Capital Group, and standing right there in his boutique, was the man behind it. Eli walked in like a breeze through stale air, calm, inevitable, eyes locked on Trevor as if he already knew every excuse that might follow. Good afternoon, he said, voice soft but resonant. Trevor blinked. Mr. Hart, I didn't know you'd be. You didn't, Eli interrupted gently, but you should have treated every customer like you expected someone to care. Trevor flinched. Brooke glanced between them, now visibly nervous. Other customers had stopped browsing. The boutique's atmosphere, once smug and insulated, had turned into a stage. Eli glanced at the display case where the pen still lay, undisturbed. You told my wife she needed verification, he said. You judged her based on how she looked, not who she was, not how she carried herself, just what she wore. Trevor opened his mouth. I had no idea she was your. Stop, Jenna said suddenly, her voice, steady but strong, surprised even herself. This isn't about me being anyone's wife. That's not why I deserve respect. Eli turned to her, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Trevor stammered, Ms. Rivera, we have policies, high-ticket procedures. I wasn't trying to offend, I swear. You didn't offend, Jenna said, walking calmly toward the counter. You humiliated. You decided I wasn't worth your time. You wanted me out before I could prove I didn't need your approval. She paused in front of the glass case, the pen shining under the lights. Well, she continued, her voice soft, I still want the pen. Trevor hesitated. Unless, Eli added, you'd prefer not to process this transaction? Trevor's hands moved fast now, unlocking the case, carefully retrieving the pen. His face flushed with a different shade of red than before. Brooke disappeared behind a curtain, likely trying to escape the fallout. As the manager wrapped the pen in the boutique's signature silver and ivory packaging, his hands trembled slightly. Will that be on your... he began. Jenna cut him off. Debit card, please. He processed it in silence. When it was done, he pushed the receipt across the counter. Jenna picked it up without a word. Eli stepped forward again. "There's a new program rolling out next quarter," he said. "Mandatory customer bias training for every boutique associated with Levine's parent group. If it's not already on your schedule, expect it soon." Trevor nodded stiffly, his smile now entirely hollow. Jenna slipped the small package into her tote bag and looked around the boutique one last time. Silence, eyes, and oddly, a hint of shame lingering in the air. She walked out without another word. Eli followed. The door closed behind them with a soft chime. This time, not a warning, but a final note. The sidewalk outside Levine and Company buzzed with an energy Jenna hadn't noticed earlier. She and Eli walked side by side, not speaking, but in perfect rhythm. Sunlight filtered through the canopy of Manhattan's high-rises, throwing soft, geometric shadows across their path. Jenna could still feel the weight of every eye in that boutique. Not because she was embarrassed anymore, but because, for the first time, she hadn't let silence protect her. She'd spoken, calmly, clearly, and it felt good. "Did that really just happen?" she asked as they turned onto 68th. Eli chuckled lightly. "You mean the part where my quiet, hoodie-wearing wife dismantled an entire luxury brand's ego in 30 words or less?" Jenna nudged him with her elbow. "I didn't dismantle anything. You didn't need to. You just showed up. That was enough." She smiled but didn't reply. A few feet ahead, a young woman wearing sunglasses and holding a phone hesitated in her step, her gaze flicking from her screen to Jenna. Their eyes met. Jenna saw recognition there. "Oh." The woman hurried past them, whispering to her friend, who turned, too. Jenna's heart skipped. "Okay. That's weird," she muttered. Eli pulled out his phone and checked his notifications, then sighed. "Oh," he said, eyebrows raised. "So that's happening." "What's happening?" He turned the screen so she could see. A short, grainy video recorded vertically was making the rounds on social media. It showed her inside Levine and Company, facing Trevor. Her voice in the clip was soft but steady. "This isn't about me being anyone's wife. That's not why I deserve respect." It had already racked up 60,000 views in under an hour. Comments flooded below it. "This is how you carry yourself with class. Her grace, her control. I'm in awe. Imagine judging someone like her, and then finding out she's married to Eli Hart. Iconic. Not her being more poised than the manager who makes 6 figures to fold napkins." Jenna groaned and covered her face. "This is not what I wanted. I didn't mean for this to be a thing." Eli laughed. "You didn't. But the truth is, people love seeing grace in unexpected places. It reminds them that kindness is power." 2. They reached the next crosswalk. Jenna exhaled. "I just wanted to buy a pen." Eli smiled at her, brushing his fingers gently against hers. "And instead, you made a point sharper than anything that pen could ever write." Back in the boutique, the aftermath was still unraveling. Trevor stood near the counter, staring at his tablet. His face was pale. The clip was everywhere. Levine and Company had already been tagged in a dozen threads with words like elitist, out of touch, and disrespectful. Behind him, Brooke reappeared, her voice a whisper. "I just spoke to corporate." Trevor didn't look up. "And they're not happy." He swallowed. The brand's PR department was already drafting a formal apology. Not just to Jenna, to everyone. Because the video had sparked more than just outrage. It had triggered stories. Hundreds of commenters were sharing their own experiences of being dismissed for looking too casual in high-end spaces. The problem wasn't just this one store. It was everywhere. Later that evening, in a quiet apartment in Brooklyn, Jenna curled up beside Eli on the couch. The pen sat on the coffee table in front of them, still in its elegant packaging. She hadn't unwrapped it yet. Not because she was second-guessing it, but because now it meant something more. Eli handed her a steaming mug of green tea. "You know," he said gently, "you've always had this quiet kind of gravity." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Gravity?" He nodded. You pull people in, not with flash, with truth. I think that's why this whole thing's blowing up. She looked at him for a moment. Do you ever feel like we're living two lives? The public version of us and the real one. All the time, Eli said without hesitation. But today, you brought those two versions a little closer together. Jenna looked down at the pen, and finally she smiled. 3 days later, Jenna sat across a polished glass conference table inside the minimalist headquarters of Heart Capital Group. The room was bathed in soft daylight from floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Midtown. Framed digital art rotated slowly on one wall, casting a faint glow on the sleek, matte surfaces. Jenna didn't belong here, or so she thought. Next to her, Eli scrolled through a list on his tablet, stopping occasionally to make quiet notes. He looked effortlessly in his element, barefoot confidence in a business suit. But every few minutes, he'd glance over at her and smile as if to say, "You got this." On the far side of the room, 3 senior executives from Levine and Company fidgeted nervously. One was in his 50s with tortoiseshell glasses and a pinched brow. Another was a woman in a sharp lavender blazer whose professionalism couldn't fully hide her unease. And next to her, a younger PR officer with a notepad clutched like a lifeline. "I want to thank you all for coming on short notice," Eli began, his tone diplomatic but firm. "We're not here to make anyone grovel. We're here to make sure something changes." He gestured subtly toward Jenna. "My wife is the reason you're all in this room. Not because she caused a problem, but because she revealed one." All eyes turned to her. Jenna cleared her throat, sat a little straighter. "Look," she said, voice soft but unwavering. "I'm not here to become some poster child for humiliation. What happened to me isn't new. It happens every day, to people with less privilege, less visibility, and no one to speak up for them." The room was silent. Even the PR officer had stopped scribbling. "I didn't want a viral moment," she continued. "I wanted to buy a pen. And when someone like me dressed how I dress, looking how I look, is treated like a threat or a nuisance in a store that claims to value craftsmanship and luxury, it says your values only apply to some people." The woman in lavender nodded slowly. "We understand. And you're right." Jenna looked at her. "Then prove it. Don't release some hollow apology that disappears in the news cycle. Build something that lasts. Teach your team how to check their instincts, not their customers." Eli leaned forward. "That's where we come in." He tapped his screen, and the display behind him changed. Equity Experience. A training initiative in partnership with Heart Capital. Jenna blinked. That was new. "We're proposing a pilot program," Eli explained. "Real training, not a PowerPoint slideshow and a bagel. We're talking empathy workshops, implicit bias exploration, situational exercises, led by experts, reviewed by customers like Jenna." She turned to him, brows raised. He gave her a little smirk. "Surprise. And you want Jenna to be involved?" the older executive asked. "Only if she wants to," Eli said, then turned to her. "I think you'd be amazing." Jenna sat back in her chair. The idea scared her, not because she didn't believe in it, but because stepping into that space meant stepping into the spotlight. No hoodies, no quiet exits, no invisibility. Just her. But something in her stirred. She thought about the messages she'd received online since the video went viral. Young women, retail workers, artists, immigrants, people who had felt unseen until they saw her. She hadn't asked for that. But now that she had it, "I'm in," Jenna said softly. Eli's eyes lit up. The executives nodded, and the woman in lavender gave a relieved smile. "We'd be honored to work with you." As the meeting wound down, the PR officer whispered to the older man, who leaned forward and cleared his throat. "Ms. Rivera," he began awkwardly, "on behalf of Levine and Company, we sincerely apologize for how you were treated. We've suspended the store manager and are reviewing policies immediately. If there's anything else we can." Jenna shook her head gently. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next person you're about to judge." The executive paused, then slowly nodded. Eli stood and the room followed. Hands were shaken, schedules were penciled in, and the promise of change hung in the air, not as a vague ideal, but as something real. As Jenna and Eli walked out of the building, the wind caught her hair and tugged at her hoodie. She zipped it up again, feeling oddly more herself than she had in days. "You sure you're up for this?" Eli asked, nudging her shoulder. She glanced sideways. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He grinned. "That's my girl." A week later, Jenna walked alone through the Lower East Side, her boots tapping softly against the pavement. The morning was hazy, sunlight slicing through gaps in scaffolding and fire escapes above. She wore a tan trench coat over her hoodie this time, part warmth, part camouflage. Not that she was hiding, just thinking. She passed boutique after boutique, high-end denim shops, curated concept stores, overpriced coffee counters tucked between fashion houses that didn't know what to do with people who didn't look like customers. But she wasn't here to shop. She was here for research. The training initiative Equity Experience was officially launching next month. And while Eli's company handled the logistics and consultants, Jenna had a different assignment. She would visit stores anonymously, observe how people like her were treated, and compile the real-world truth behind the company's curated image. She wasn't here to test them. She was here to see them. At the corner of Orchard and Broome, she spotted a sleek boutique with tall windows, minimalist displays, and a bold serif logo on the glass. VIE. She took a breath and stepped inside. It was quiet, the kind of curated silence that made her acutely aware of her footsteps. The scent was lavender and leather. A young man in an oversized black turtleneck looked up from behind a marble counter. "Morning," he said, smiling politely. Jenna gave a small nod. "Hi, just browsing." He nodded and returned to folding scarves, expensive-looking ones. No icy tone, no questioning glances, no eyes scanning her for hidden wealth. Interesting. She wandered toward a display of handmade jewelry, small silver rings with uneven edges, probably crafted by some Scandinavian designer whose name was impossible to pronounce. Another staffer, a woman this time, approached. "Those just came in from Oslo," she offered. "They're beautiful, right?" Jenna turned to her, caught slightly off guard. "Yeah, actually. They're all hand-forged, kind of imperfect on purpose." "I like that," Jenna said. "Me too." The woman gave a real smile. "Let me know if you want to try anything on." Then she walked away just like that. No hard sell, no hovering, just respect. Jenna stood frozen for a moment. So this is what it feels like, being treated like a human first, not like a problem to assess, not like a costume to decode. She didn't buy anything, didn't need to. The experience itself was the data point. Back outside, Jenna pulled out her phone and opened the shared document she and Eli's team were building together. She titled her latest entry, VIE Boutique, Orchard ST. Tone warm, respectful, no visible bias. Notes, imperfect silver rings. Staff reflected quiet kindness. Recommendation, use as model location for empathy case study. She hit save. That evening, back in their apartment, Jenna stood barefoot in the kitchen stirring soup. Eli sat nearby on a stool, phone in one hand, sipping from a chipped mug in the other. "You look like a spy," he teased. Jenna smirked over her shoulder. "I kind of am. I infiltrated a boutique today and left with nothing but validation." "Dangerous woman," he grinned. "I'm serious, though," she said, setting down the spoon. "That place, they treated me like I was just another person. No assumptions, no power dynamics. It made me realize how starved I've been for that." Eli nodded, leaning in. "That's the point of what we're building, right? To make normal decency normal again." Jenna crossed her arms, thinking, it's more than just kindness. It's about unlearning things. That instinct some people have to judge based on a hoodie or skin tone or even just posture. And knowing there's another way. She paused, then added, "I want our program to teach that, not just shame people into pretending." Eli raised his mug. "To the hoodie revolution." She tapped her spoon against his cup. "To empathy that doesn't come with a price tag." The The studio lights were soft, warm, and a little too bright for Jenna's taste. She sat in a mid-century armchair across from the host of Modern Voices, a popular digital talk show focused on cultural changemakers. Behind her, the skyline of New York shimmered through tall windows, the evening sun catching on glass towers like a quiet spotlight. Jenna wore a simple olive green blouse, dark jeans, and the same boots from the day she was turned away at Levine and Company. No makeup team, no stylist, just her. 3, 2, 1. A voice called softly from behind the camera. The host, a poised woman named Callie Monroe, smiled warmly as the camera light blinked red. "Tonight," she began, "we're joined by Jenna Rivera, illustrator, quiet activist, and the woman behind one of the most talked about viral videos this month. But what's more impressive than the moment that caught public attention is what she's building in its aftermath. Jenna, welcome." "Thanks for having me," Jenna replied, her voice calm but clear. "Let's start with the obvious," Callie said, leaning in. "You went to buy a birthday gift for your husband and ended up triggering a global conversation about bias in luxury spaces. What did it feel like watching that video spread?" Jenna gave a small laugh. "Weird. Overwhelming. First, I hated it. I don't like being the center of attention. I just wanted to do something thoughtful for someone I love. But you didn't just stay quiet. You returned to the store. And you spoke up." Jenna nodded. "I wasn't trying to be defiant. I just felt like someone needed to say it. That how you dress or how you walk into a room shouldn't determine your value. And honestly, I was tired of watching people like me shrink themselves to fit spaces that were never designed for them." Callie looked genuinely moved. "You said something in that boutique that really stuck with people. I don't deserve respect because of who I'm married to. That line alone has been shared by millions." Jenna looked down, then back up with a quiet fire in her eyes. "That's still how I feel. Being married to Eli, he's incredible. But I didn't suddenly earn respect because he has money. I deserve it because I'm human, just like every retail worker, immigrant kid, artist, or mom in a hoodie who walks into a room and gets sized up before saying a word." Callie nodded, pausing a beat. "And now you're launching something new, Equity Experience. Tell us about that." "It's a partnership with Heart Capital," Jenna explained. "We're developing empathy training programs for retail spaces, starting with high-end stores. Not to shame staff, but to open their eyes to the micro-behaviors they may not even realize they're doing. It's not just about don't be rude. It's about recognizing unconscious patterns, learning how to listen with your whole self, and treating everyone as worthy from the second they walk through the door." "And you're designing it yourself?" "With a team," Jenna said. "I'm not a corporate trainer. I'm an artist, but art teaches empathy too. So I'm using that skill to help people see stories instead of assumptions." Callie sat back, visibly impressed. "Do you feel ready for the attention this brings?" Jenna smiled, just a little. "No, but I'm showing up anyway." The audience watching from home wouldn't see what happened after the cameras stopped rolling. How Callie leaned across the table and said, "Thank you. My mom worked in boutiques for 30 years. She would have cried hearing you say all that." And Jenna, blinking back her own tears, simply whispered, "Then this is for her too." That night, back home, Jenna curled into the couch beside Eli, watching as social media lit up again. This time not with outrage, but with hope. A comment from someone in Tokyo: "I showed this to my manager. We're translating your program into Japanese." A DM from Johannesburg: "I run a women-owned boutique. Can we bring this training to South Africa?" A tweet from a teenager in Dallas: "I'm gonna wear my hoodie proudly to prom." Jenna laughed through the lump in her throat. "What?" Eli asked, glancing over. She handed him her phone. He read, then looked at her with pride glowing in his eyes. "You're starting something bigger than a boutique scandal." Jenna leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "I didn't plan to start anything," she murmured. "I just refused to disappear." A month had passed since the day Jenna walked out of Levine and Company. Outside, New York bloomed in full spring, cherry blossoms lining sidewalks, the city humming with a quieter optimism than usual. But inside the Rivera Hart apartment, the world felt still, safe, honest. Jenna sat at her small wooden desk by the window, fingers smudged with graphite, sketchbook open. Sunlight spilled across the page where she'd drawn a woman. Mid-step, head held high, her shadow stretching behind her like a cape. Not glamorous, not famous, just whole. Next to the sketchbook sat the 1938 Mont Blanc pen, still in its packaging. She hadn't touched it since the day Trevor had handed it to her with trembling hands. Somehow she hadn't been ready, until now. She slowly unwrapped the box, the crinkling sound of fine tissue paper echoing louder than expected in the quiet room. Inside, the pen gleamed, rich burgundy with gold trim, timeless, dignified. She held it in her hand. It was heavier than she expected, weighted, solid. Eli appeared in the doorway, hair wet from a shower, towel slung around his neck. He paused when he saw her, then smiled softly. "You finally opened it. I think I needed to earn it first," she said. He walked over and leaned against the window frame, watching her turn the pen slowly in her fingers. "You always deserved it," he replied. "That store didn't get to decide that." "I know." She uncapped the pen and reached for a fresh page in her journal. Her hand hesitated for a second before moving slowly, ink gliding across paper. Value isn't something others give you. It's something you choose not to trade away, no matter how quiet, small, or simple you seem. She looked up. "That's for the first page of the training manual." Eli's grin widened. "It's perfect." They stood in silence, sunlight warming their faces, as traffic murmured for stories below. Then Jenna turned to him. "Can I tell you something I've been thinking? Always. I used to think this all happened by accident. That the video, the attention, the training program, it just exploded. But now I think maybe the world was just waiting for someone quiet enough to be heard above all the noise." Eli looked at her, not with awe, but with the kind of love that sees everything and stays. "You didn't change the world, Jenna. You reminded it of what it forgot." She blinked. "Which is that dignity doesn't need diamonds, and kindness doesn't require credentials." She laughed. "That sounds like something you'd say on a panel." He shrugged. "Maybe I stole it from you." That evening, Jenna stood once again outside a boutique. Not Levine and Company, but one of their competitors across town. The windows sparkled. The staff bustled inside, preparing for a private empathy workshop led by Equity Experience. She didn't go in yet. Instead, she watched a young woman in a hoodie walk by, headphones on, paint stains on her backpack. She stopped at the window, gazed in, then turned as if deciding it wasn't her space. Jenna stepped forward. "Hey!" she called out gently. The girl looked over, surprised. Jenna smiled and nodded toward the door. "You belong in there, just so you know." The girl hesitated, then smiled back. Jenna didn't wait to see if she entered. She'd already done her part. Months later, the headlines had faded. The viral clip, buried beneath trending scandals and celebrity mishaps. The apology letters, the training programs, the interviews, they'd all done their part. The internet had moved on, but Jenna hadn't. Not because she was chasing relevance, but because she'd found something far more powerful than fame. A mission. Today, she sat at a folding table in a small community center on the edge of Queens. Around her, a group of high school girls in mismatched hoodies and sneakers leaned over sketchbooks, pens moving, brows furrowed. On the wall behind them, a hand-painted banner read, "Create what the world overlooks." No cameras, no press, just stories being drawn one pencil stroke at a time. Jenna walked between tables, offering encouragement, pausing to admire a portrait here, a poem there. One girl, a shy 16-year-old named Amara, held up a rough sketch of a woman standing tall in front of a closed boutique door. Underneath, she'd written, "They told her she didn't belong, so she built a new door." Jenna felt her throat tighten. She crouched beside her. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "You know, that's exactly what I did." Amara blinked. "Really?" Jenna smiled. "Really?" And in that moment, Jenna understood something she hadn't before. The story hadn't ended with the boutique, or the apology, or the press coverage. It had just begun. Quietly, simply, through every young voice that now believed their presence mattered. Dignity, after all, was never about walking into the right store. It was about standing tall no matter who tried to shrink you. And Jenna Rivera? She wasn't just a simple woman anymore. She was proof. Before we close, let's take a moment to pray. May we all be protected from arrogance and misjudgment, and may we all be protected from harm and injustice in our daily lives. May this story inspire us to treat others with empathy, no matter what they look like or where they come from. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever surprised someone with your hidden strength? We'd love to hear your story. Thank you for listening, and remember, the strongest people often look like the quietest ones. Until next time, stay strong, stay humble, and stay true.